The bipartisan talks is today at the Bomas of Kenya, and also, as you can see, fuel prices is the biggest debate right now in the country, and here is Kenya being strangled, as you've heard that His Highness Archbishop Muheri is saying that we are strangling Kenya, and this is a very depicting picture of how Kenyans are being strangled. How high can he go? That is the probing question that we have a small right asking there. How high can he go? And we're being warned by the CS of Trade there that every month 10 shillings on top of what we are paying right now will be added on your fuel prices. That is 210, 220, and adding 10 and 10, continuing apace. You can do the calculation in your math as well. We want just to unpack this now robustly with our panelists as we continue. Let's just promise that we'll circle back with you, our economist in the house right now, Dr. Kalua. Wakale Mulu, to just tell us what is the way forward? If we were in this morass, if the government says that now there's nothing much we can do, we leave it just like the shilling. We had the CBK coming and saying, no, we're not going to try and cushion the falling of a shilling. We'll just leave it for the market forces to course correct itself. Now we are applying the same solution to the fuel prices as it is.
Thank you, Dibal.
Should we be left in the masses of the market forces?
You know,
that's the question.
Dibal, when you watch the soapbox, as a Kenyan, you get worried because there's a lot of double speak. There are lots of lies being pushed out to the Kenyans there. And you ask yourself whether we are that level of desperation. I don't think we are that desperate as a country. The truth of the matter is some things must be put right for us to move forward. When you compare the price of fuel in Uganda with the price of fuel in Kenya, and you want just to cheat Kenyans openly, people are forgetting that by either touch of a button or a screen, Kenyans can access this information. And that's why I think the leaders must be aware of that fact, that what you say publicly is also public knowledge. Any Kenyan now, including my grandmother is no longer alive, so I can't mention her, but I think if your mother has managed to go up to Form 2, she can easily find out how much fuel is costing all over the world by just using this gadget called a mobile phone. And more so a smart mobile phone. So the challenge we have is, for example, at one point I remember a committee of the House, that is Parliament, that is the Committee on Planning and Finance. You remember at some point this matter of increase of fuel prices was a contentious issue in this country. And that committee was tasked by the House to go out there and find out why is the price of fuel in Kenya that expensive. And if you remember, and you can go to that report, you realize that other than the international prices, which will be determined out there, and then when you bring the fuel all the way up to Mombasa. From there, at that point, I remember we had about 7 different levies on that product as a country. And if you look at those levies, and some you can mention fuel development levy, railways, U-Watt levy, there were so many levies and taxes. It boasts on the price after getting it at Mombasa. And it is the difference of these levies which make the price differ from one country to the other. Because you find some countries have more levies, while others might just be having 1 or 2. So on the basis of how much you have imposed levies or taxes, then that will determine your local price. And that's why, to some extent, comparing the price of fuel in Kenya and Uganda might not even make sense at that level. Because it depends on how we have levied those levies. The other important bit is, in a country where we rely so much on importation of fuel, then the component of exchange rate will always affect the price of fuel. Because you bought on the basis of how many dollars per barrel, but then when you convert the dollars to the local currency, that determines the price. So that is another component. And we are all aware as Kenyans that our shilling is getting a serious beating when it comes to exchange rate. And that's why you find if you were to remove that component of the exchange rate, more likely the price would have been lower. If we are talking about a dollar, which is at now 120, as the president had promised this country, when he was talking about the G2G arrangement, that's the government to government, because the whole idea was to reduce the demand for dollars. And on the basis of that, you remember even at one point we were given such hope that we would be paying for these products in Kenya shillings, if you remember.
Yes.
And it was on the basis of that then the price of fuel, the dollar was supposed to expected to come down to $1 to about 120. Now we are at how much? About 150 a dollar. So instead of this G2G arrangement even helping this country, it has made things worse. It worsens the situation. And I always see this statement coming up. Every day people saying, you know, we inherited a very bad government, and now the thing is, the truth of the matter, Diba, is that when you are elected a leader, you will always find the economy of that state in a certain level. Even us who are elected at the constituency level, you take over from somebody who has been managing that constituency. And it's not always that you want to look at the rear mirror and start saying things were bad. You have been given that mandate to lead this country. Kenya Kwanza has been given the mandate to lead this country from last year, August. They should be telling us, we found this country in this state, and they knew it was in that state because they did their, unless they didn't do their due diligence in terms of checking where we are economically, politically, socially, they shouldn't be complaining because they took the economy, being aware that the economy was not doing very well, and their work. And the reason why Kenyans voted for them is because we believed that they gave promises which, if implemented, then we would be able to push this economy to the other level. Now, it has become a state of lamentations. Everybody is lamenting. You look at my chair budget, Nyoro is lamenting. That time he was saying prices should come down. Now he's no longer talking about prices coming down. He's now defending the increase of prices. To me, this is not the kind of leaders. You know, that's how you lose credibility as a leader, by having double speak. The worst bit is that all these leaders you see every Sunday, they are in churches. Imagine. Confessing that to be, these are the guys who every Sunday they are telling their bishops and their pastors that we are still faithful, and some will even claim to be saved. And you know, anytime you confess to a faith, people believe you should be able. So when you tell open lies, and you want to tell, you know, Moses Kuria might be saying the things he's saying is a CS because of the collective responsibility issue. You might not be expected to say it, but what he's telling Kenya is the truth. That's the truth. The truth of the matter is, so long as the international prices are increasing, fuel international prices, so long as the dollar keeps on appreciating against the Kenya shillings, or the Kenya shilling depreciates against the dollar continuously, so long as we are not digging our own oil in this country, the price of oil is expected to increase. But we are not short of solutions. One of the solutions is you could easily look at the levies which have been imposed on this product, because they are about 7 different ones. And if a government cares about cushioning the low level mwananchi, they could easily suspend some of those levies. It's not lost to us that you could easily suspend some of those levies so that you bring the price down. Or they tell the IMF World Bank arrangement that we signed for this agreement that we are going to do with subsidies. But where our economy is today, we must come down to subsidies temporarily to cushion this country. Otherwise, what will happen now? They are now talking about we can't do anything. I don't think all is lost, Sosion. All is not lost. The reason why you are given the mandate to govern a country is to be able to make decisions outside the box. This is the time you tell the so-called the IMF and the World Bank that where we are today, ladies and gentlemen, if we go on with these subsidies, then very soon we'll have no country. Because what is happening, and you saw this comedian, I don't know what is the name of the comedian, mobilizing now, starting to whip Kenyans that come out to the streets, and the day is expected to be, I saw that in the social media, that come out and they say no to this increase of prices. You saw, that's how now countries start getting messed up. It might get to a level where now it's no longer Azimio leading these things, but now Mwananchi taking it over and running to the streets. And I don't think any Kenyan would want that situation. So let this gentleman, the so-called Kenya Kwanza, listen to technical advice coming from economists, financial experts. For now, it's time to go slow on politics and focus more on technical advice so that we save the situation. Otherwise, we all know this country relies so much on fuel. I like what Sosione is saying about alternative fuel source. But what he's forgetting is it will take a lot of time for us to get to that level. You can't say let's switch from fossils today and move to green energy. It doesn't happen in a day. It takes time. And that process, that's the way to start thinking. But at the same time, we need to bear in mind that then currently the Kenyans are suffering. And I like what Archbishop Mworia is saying. You know, anytime I listen to Archbishop Mworia, I see a voice of reason. The kind of things he says, you might like him or not, but the kind of things he says is a real man of God. He says the truth as it should be said. You might like it, you might not like it. The truth of the matter is, Kenyans are suffering. This has been confirmed everywhere. The other day you saw the bow. The Federation of Kenyan Employers has actually threatened to sack people who are employed, to sack people from jobs. Why? Because they are saying we are at a level where we can't meet the expenses. It's a situation where I won't pay, I can't pay. Even if you wanted to pay, you can't pay. So you say, I would rather die other than now doing the things we are doing. And for me, you know, Sosione, when he used to be the Secretary General of NAT, this guy here, he was the champion of the masses. The kind of strikes he led in this country, pushing teachers to the streets to get a salary increment. Now he's here keeping quiet, he can't talk, and the same teachers are suffering out there. Just because, I think you need to be consistent, my friend. You've been known to this country to be consistent. Tell Kenyans what Karwala is telling Kenyans.
Yes. That
it's time the president sacks a few of these guys. Otherwise, you will have no, you know, in the very near future, you might never know. Because of this, you know, it says that you deal with the problem, or the problem sorts you out. This problem might sort somebody out. So it's a choice. Some of these ministers, the way they are talking, I think they really need to listen to the voice of reason out there. People who are saying, like now what we are saying, if I was the president of this country today, it is time to collect taxes because they have been approved by the parliament, but at the same time, use the same taxes to cushion Kenyans who are suffering today. And there are so many ways of cushioning Kenyans. You know, you are aware of the cash transfer system where you can get the money and push money to individuals. We are now already pushing money to the elderly, 2,000 shillings. The same can be used as a temporary measure just to cushion Kenyans. And once the things stabilize, we'll go back to our normal things in the bar. Right. So to me, I think we have lots of issues we can discuss, but let's give Kenyans up, even as we discuss in this.
The Kenya Association of Manufacturers has moved to court as well to challenge the Export Development Investment levy, the 17% that the government has introduced through the finance bill, that is unsustainable. Because, as you say, the Federation of Kenya Employers have threatened that most of the employers are going to be also retrenching their workers. We have the Association of Manufacturers as well saying they're going to follow suit if this is implemented because it is unsustainable. Is this indicative that even the environment that we seek to tax and some of these taxes that are targeted to, like the clinker and the cement factory, would adversely affect the manufacturing sector, is indicative that this is unsustainable? And you say that we have to get taxes for us to spur growth. But also we've realized, even from the academicians as well, the much you tax, sometimes you reach a deflection point where you tax so much, but you also gain so little from those taxes that you actually are fronting at the end of the day. And as I mentioned before we took a short break, the recent report is that from the taxes, all the revenue that we are now targeting from taxes seems to have stagnated. There's no any blip.
Yeah, Dibal, I don't know. I'm not an economist myself. I'm a lawyer. But I don't know of a government that has taxed itself to economic growth. That is a very simple approach to how to manage the microeconomics of a country. You cannot be sitting down and thinking the only way I am going to have growth and development in my country is by going to the pockets of the people you lead. Every time you think you need more money. I don't think that is the way to go. But Dibal, you know, the first thing that makes me very sad as a Kenyan is when you watch a TV news caption and you are seeing very respectable leaders lying to the people that they lead. Like the issue of prices of oil. I mean, you know, we border Tanzania, we border Uganda. Even a border guy will tell you that when I cross Busia to Uganda, I buy fuel cheaper at 187 shillings. It's about 2,300 Tanzanian shillings. When you convert, it's about 187. In Tanzania, even if you Google now, what my friend Makali was saying, it's $1.3 per liter. When you convert, that's about 189 shillings. So how are you going to respond to the challenge that is facing you as a country if all you want to do is to peddle lies to the people you lead? I mean, what do people think of the UDA government when all they are seeing is leaders who want to peddle lies and propaganda as a way of responding to a crisis? That's not the way to go, Debate. First, let's appreciate that if you check data, in terms of taxation on fuel products, Kenya is #1 in Africa. We're even ahead of South Africa on taxation on our fuel products. We tax Kenyans on income tax, we tax Kenyans on VAT, on every other product. We tax corporate Kenyans who are doing business, corporate tax. But again, when you go back to fuel, the ban, you will find that there's even a road development levy lumped on fuel. VAT on fuel during the previous regime of President Uhuru was 8%. We have now increased it to 16%. That in itself will make the cost of fuel in Kenya to be more costly than fuel in Uganda. And you know, if you look at the microeconomics, fuel in Uganda should be more expensive. Why? Look at the distance from Mombasa to our country here, and then the distance to Kampala. It's far on the other side. But because we are overtaxing Kenyans, that's why the cost of fuel is high. Now, going back to the concern being raised by manufacturers, the best way to grow a country, is by creating an environment that is attractive to investors. How do you make it attractive? You make it attractive by having a tax regime that is friendly, that is attractive. That's what Rwanda is doing, you know. But if you want to discourage investors like manufacturers, and manufacturers are the ones that will create employment opportunities. Once you create employment opportunities, money will circulate. You can now tax many Kenyans, not overtaxing them. You increase the tax base, and then you are able to collect more. But what I'm seeing from the cabinet, the people who are supposed to help President Ruto govern the country, is that they don't care. They don't feel Kenyans. You have posed a question to my friend here, Dibal, and you have asked him, is this the right? I mean, if you are a leader who has a connection with the people, is this the right time to again propose more tax measures, Dibal? The answer is no. This is not the time to tell Kenyans that we are going to increase VAT from 16% to 18%, and the other things I mentioned, which I don't want to repeat. So the only thing I can conclude, if you wanted me to pass a verdict on this government, is one, I don't think the government has an ability to see the suffering of Kenyans. Two, Kenyans have spoken. This government of Uda has no capacity to hear what Kenyans are saying about their suffering. Three, you cannot even, you know, at times you can even touch the suffering. You can feel the suffering of Kenyans. This Uda government has got no capacity at all. So it's Kenyans are now being left on their own. Mm-hmm. They are on their own. The government has got no, it is not doing anything to respond and cushion Kenyans from the suffering they are finding themselves in. You know what my friend mentioned, Makali Mulu? The 2,000 subsidy for the old people was introduced by President retired Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta over 8 years ago. If you are increasing taxes, Dibal, on Kenyans, doesn't it also, common sense demands that you also increase the earnings of Kenyans? If you compare, Makali Mulu, you are the economist in the room, if you compare the money that the government is taking away from Kenyans in terms of taxation and the salary increase, you get a negative.
Yeah, it's a negative.
You get a negative. The government has raided the pockets of Kenyans more than it has increased salaries in their pockets. If you look at the level of inflation that was there last year and now, the situation will tell you that if we had a strong trade unionist, not the one you're putting on the front of nation today, we will now be having an agitation for salary increase. Because Kenyans need to get a salary increase to respond to the high cost of living. That's how you manage and run countries. So my conclusion is what I said at the beginning. UDA is unable to manage the country. If you are a leader who has been elected, what I heard my friend Ntondo Nyoro say, that Raila Odinga is not the right person to pass judgment on Kenyans. Who does he expect to criticize the government, if not the leader of official opposition? And even if you wanted to compare the government that was there, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the current one, you had Ruto say petrol was 105 shillings then. Now, it's 211. Kenyans will even be happy. They will tell you hand over government to Raila Odinga, then if you are not able to manage the country. I'm a very sad Kenyan this morning, Dibal. I pity those in government like Sosion who are not courageous enough to ask those who are responsible to quit, because that's what the people of Bomet expect you to do. Be courageous, stand up, be counted. Dibal, listen to a bishop. Muhere is not a politician. That's a Catholic bishop speaking to Kenyans. You can ignore what we are saying, but don't ignore that bishop. On Sunday, when you go to church and be a faithful of the Catholic Church, listen to their heartbeat. Let's be honest. Honorable Sosion, former Secretary General of NAT, and tell the government that on this one, you are failing. That's how you show leadership. That's how you tell the king you are naked. If you continue lying the president, you will wake up one day and you will find a country that is on a revolution mood.
Sosion, I just wanted to ask, if at all then the government now is throwing up its arms in the air and saying we cannot do anything because these are externalities, shocks, and we have no control over them. Was there any rhyme or reason that the government should have actually touched on the VAT on fuel from 8% to 16%, knowing that we have a very unpredictable environment as far as the global oil is concerned? The crude reality is, of course, even in the 10, it has risen very high right now within the 10 months that we've been given, because also China is paring back on their reserves. So the spike is going up and up. We will not be in 210 situation if the 8% was not added to 16%. At least by now, Kenyans will be bearing the blip and the external shocks that is coming from outside if the government had not increased the 8%. Was that really warranted? And was that the wisest of fashion to actually touch on the fuel?
I don't know, Dibal, the kind of answer you'll want me to give you. The doubling of that from 8% to 16% was taken through due process and Parliament approved. So it's a piece of legislation, is one method of raising revenue. And I think this is the issue of the fuel prices.
But before you even go on,
fuel prices.
Before you go on, Sosion, allow me, because you mentioned these duties that were being levied, a lot of them. We remember during the campaign and the presidential debates, President William Ruto, then a presidential candidate, came and with a slip and he read out some of his levies and he asked all these levies, what are we paying them for? And he says he take reins of government, he's going to pare back on those particular revenues.
About 9 of them. Actually.
9 of them, the revenues that were there, he listed them before Kenyans. Has he ever done any of the paring down that he promised, from your own assessment?
Yeah, Debal, you've gone into the details of the levies and what was talked about during those times. I'm not privy to that. Now,
you're not privy to
now, that? Yes. Now,
He was actually in Parliament.
You were in Parliament for the 8%.
Yes.
When we had the feisty 8% debate, you were in Parliament.
Yes.
You never watched the presidential debate. That's what you want to tell us.
Now, Debal.
I'm asking you never watched the presidential debate.
I did watch.
You didn't watch?
I watched.
You watched?
Yes.
That one missed you.
And let's go back to the main debate of the fuel pricing. What really is the cause of, even if you compare regionally, Uganda, Tanzania, the difference is insignificant. Now, what we are having here, you've done the maths from September last year up to this year, that there's been a marginal rise up to 52 shillings per litre of petrol. What is pushing the prices upwards? Are they internal issues or external? The fact is, the global push up for prices of fuel is real, and it may not stop for the next couple of months. It will still go up. And probably this is a point now that you're talking about offloading certain levies, certain taxes. Yep. Offloading certain taxes requires a review by Parliament. And is it possible to review? If you are going to review to offload the taxes, what are you going to do with the budget? Now, we are in a complicated situation where government must raise revenue to finance the budget and the plan that it has designed for the people of Kenya. All these taxes being collected are not going to waste. The taxes, once they are collected, will be used to deliver services, the healthcare, education, and the general development of the country. So really, when we isolate certain items and we try to demonize politically, I don't think we are doing justice to Kenyans. Let's tell Kenyans the truth. The prices of crude oil globally are going up. It's not going to end very soon. The conflict in Ukraine, Russia is still on. We don't know when it will end. And so we are headed for more harder times. The revenue must be collected through taxation, and it will be collected in accordance with the law, according to the Finance Bill or Finance Act, for that matter. So we are in hard times, Debal, is the truth of the matter. And we have a complicated economy to manage. It's not going to be very easy. We'll all bear the brunt of the complicated and hard economy, but with time, Omugini here said, no, this government is not sensitive to Kenyans. This is the most sensible and sensitive government that is trying to fix what has not been fixed before. And it's going to take time. The president is so committed in having the economy work and work well. And of course, Kenya will still remain a destination of choice for investors. Of course, the manufacturers are complaining because they want to make profit. Yes, that's a fact for sure. But at the end of the day, government must raise revenue to deliver services to the people of Kenya. Where is government going to
deliver services?
Yes.
Okay, I need to remind you that we had the president's, when he took reins as well, his budget went up, the recurrent expenditure, by 87.6 billion shillings from the previous regime. And we have the recurrent expenditure. If you're saying this is actually taking to deliver services, which the recurrent expenditure for this financial year, it was reversed to 1.27 trillion shillings from the previous cap of 1.18 trillion shillings set by, of course, the former regime. So when you tell me that is to deliver services, is this money being gotten out of Kenyans to deliver service or for this recurrent expenditure? Because we've seen the bloated government. Even you are a victim yourself right now. Amongst the 50 CSs now, the courts made a determination, and it's pending right now. Do we need the 50 CSs? And this was going actually to actually just recurrent expenditure. So is it the delivery of services that to Kenyans, or to actually finance this government, which is really top heavy?
I think, Dibal, you are misreading.
But I've just read you are giving you statistics.
You are misreading.
Those are facts.
How am I misleading?
Those are facts, Mheshimiwa.
The thing is,
Those are facts.
No, just give me space.
I think this morning
you are trying to demonize the government very wrong.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm just asking.
When you talk of recurrent, if you look at the revenue being collected to finance the different aspects of the budget, whether it's development and recurrent, those are essential areas of spending, and spending will have to be.
I'm just following up where the president said that we will scale down. Almost 300 billion shillings will go down so that we may try.
Which of course was scaled down.
it has gone up.
It is gone up.
Which of course was scaled down.
It has gone up.
It has gone up.
And if you look at the balance sheet,
it has gone up
for the last financial year.
Okay, what I'm just trying to say, and regardless, even if there is development of that, I'm trying to say that what is the almost 3.7 trillion shillings is a budget of the current administration.
Yes.
You have half of it going to recurrent expenditure.
And that's how it is all over. You are not going to stop paying salaries to workers. You are not going to stop spending on critical areas for government services. It is not going to stop. Recurrent will always be there. And
so recurrent is from the private sector. Recurrent is the government has also been increasing salaries of the executive.
Increased unnecessary offices.
There is an increase. That is a proposal that we have an increase. Or even you legislators as well. You have actually gotten a blip in terms of increments of salaries, and the civil servants as well. Where is this money coming from?
Now, that's now the question. If you are not going to tax, if you are not going to mop up taxes and collect revenue, how are you going to?
That's why I'm asking a very simple question. Why can't we just slow our roll? Because everyone is facing this global shocks.
It is
just
easier,
a moment.
It is easier for you.
No, for my household, we will pare down on things.
But to practically make the economy work, it is not a walk in the park, and is extremely technical as such. So, talking about reducing recurrent, it cannot work, because when you're talking about the social sector, salaries for workers and consumable even in offices and operations of government, it will require money. You can't run away from such such aspect.
I think
what you should be talking about.
Be fair.
I want to be fair.
Be fair to my friend Sosion. Sosion knows the king is naked. He's not in a suit, but he cannot say it on TV.
No.
You know, when you talk about increase in recurrent expenditure, it's very simple. Look at the increase of officers within the office of the president, the advisors, who are enjoying status of cabinet secretaries. That in itself will automatically increase the recurrent expenditure. Look at the CAS administrative secretaries. You create 56 offices. What do you expect to develop? Recurrent will shoot up. That's why you are getting that increase of 89 billion. But you know, Honorable Sisson will tell you that. But that is a direct result of careless decision making by the executive, Dibal. Because you cannot just create offices to reward your friends and not putting ahead the interest of Kenyans on what is the value addition for these offices. And you know, you heard what the president said the other day about judges giving injunctions. You know why that statement was being made? That case for CAS, the injunction, is coming up for hearing on 25th. So that statement was being made deliberately to threaten and scare judges. Because instead of the BAL responding to the suffering, the high rising of cost of fuel, the president is concerned with a few of his friends who must be comfortable in some offices, but not the many Kenyans, the millions who elected him into office. So unless there is a wake-up call from the president, Debal, in terms of putting as number one service delivery to Kenyans and not a reward of a few people in a few offices, we'll never get it wrong. And let's not, I don't like what I'm seeing here. You are a government and you are telling Kenyans, let's live in hope. We do not elect, whoever elected would not elect Uda to tell Kenyans live in hope. They elected the government so that there is service delivery and you bring comfort and a smile to the faces of Kenyans. The people should be selling hope is opposition, that when we take over in 2027, we shall give you hope. The current regime should not sell hope to Kenyans. Give us services, cushion Kenyans, make life bearable, and you are spoiled for choice. If you look at the taxation you have introduced, you can again go back to the drawing board. Debal, the government can go back to the drawing board. You have posed a question, and I don't know why this morning Debal, Sosion, a teacher, does not want to respond to your questions. Let him give you what will be the sum effect if you removed the 16% VAT on fuel, take it to 8%. The trickle-down effect will be immediate. You have posed that question to him, but does not want to answer you.
Right. I think it's not my time.
It is your time, yes.
I was supposed to be.
But you know, Sosion is alone today.
They took it back again. But just a couple of issues, based informed by their contribution. The first thing, Dibal, and I've said this many times, I think what has happened with the Kenya Kwanza government, and that's why they are facing challenges, the focus has been so much on the revenue side of the equation as opposed to the expenditure side. And many times we have said it's time they also sat down and reviewed the expenditure side in terms of, out of the things we have proposed to spend resources on, are there things you could do without and still achieve the same result? That's actually, we call it minimization of the expenditure, but at the same time achieving the same results. And I think we can easily achieve that. And that's where your point on recurrent expenditure comes in. Because you see, it's a truth that when you review it, when you do just a budget review, you realize you have so many government institutions, the SAGAs, the same government autonomous institutions, where we are funding almost 100% the recurrent, and there's minimum budget for development, which means we are paying these people to sit in offices. So this institution is expected to deliver service to Kenyans. We are paying salaries. We have given money for snacks and everything else, but there's no money for development, which means basically then you are paying people to sit in the office. We have said many times, such an organization, such a non-government organization, or semi-autonomous government organizations could easily be done away with, and we achieve the same results. The issue of taxation, Deba, and you rightly put it earlier, there is a statement I've also made publicly, that no government has ever developed by taxing people beyond their capacity to pay. Normally what would happen is, if you tax people beyond their capacity to pay, then they resort to tax evasion. They come up with the strategies to avoid paying taxes. So you find companies could start now. You remember at one point we had companies which had two payrolls, one for government, another one the real one. So basically what would happen is, if I find I can't pay the taxes, I'll come up with a way of making sure that then no tax is due to me, and I start doing fun things. The other thing, Dibal, matters taxation. The other important bit is that even as we tax, there's a point you raised, Dibal, although from here you just explained it. You know, in economics, there is that theory about the Raffles theory, where we say there's an optimum level of taxation, where beyond that level, then you start collecting less revenue.
It's a deflection.
Yeah, it's a deflection. And I think because you have serious economists in this government, you know, like when Dr. D talks, they see more of arrogance than just saying the truth. There are some things which must be said as they are. And D is not a politician like me and Sosion and Senator here. D is an economist. So when he talks of some things, you must see that talk from a perspective of a professional. somebody who has looked at the theories, who looks at the practical aspect of it, and applies that theory to make conclusions. And that's what I would want to say. Let's not ignore when we are being told, I think what he tweeted last night was that he has no respect for politicians, and even added he has no respect for government. Maybe basically because what I'm picking from that statement is possibly the technical advice is giving this government, nobody seems to adhere to that advice. Although it is expected, some of us who have been in that area where your advice is, you are supposed to give your technical advice, but it's not automatic that it will be taken up. So you must also be prepared for that kind of frustration. The other issue which is important to review.
There's a very interesting editorial cartoon even before we go to that issue.
Oh yeah.
And we can see Ndi here is washing his hands.
He's been crashing the KK government.
Yes, you can see the election promises.
Yes.
And the long noses of Rigathi Gachagua and President William Ruto.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if Sosion knows about the long noses, if he knows about Pinocchio.
He will tell us.
And Pinocchio, every time he used to lie,
yeah,
the reed and that nose used to grow longer and longer and longer. So every time you lie, this is now how it is. So when Pinocchio lies, that particular nose was getting longer and longer. So this is what Victor has drawn here, that you're lying and the noses are getting longer and longer, as Pinocchio's nose.
It's very creative. The other point I wanted to comment on is the issue of the budget. You know, when you do a budget, these are proposals. These are things you aspire to do with the time. And normally what happens, anytime you prepare the budget, and that's what you see as who are economists, there's something we call assumptions. There are things you assume. You assume the economy will behave this way, inflation will be at this rate, interest rates will be at this rate. So on the basis of that, then you project the possible revenue collection. So based on that, what would happen is, anytime you do a budget, if there are external factors, the so-called externalities, which don't then apply as you had expected, the best way is always to review your budget and see what is doable and what is not doable, informed by the current now reality. Not the assumptions, the reality on the ground. And I think this is where we are getting it wrong. Like when I listen to Society, like saying, we did a budget, we promised to do 1, 2, 3, but you know there were underlying assumptions when you are giving these promises. Now, the reality on the ground, it doesn't really support you to do what you promised to do. It is time now the Kenya Kwanza government comes out and tells Kenyans, ladies and gentlemen, our supporters, we promise 1, 2, 3, but these are our assumptions at a third. Like when the president says, the government can't understand why the price of fuel is increasing. At that time, there were assumptions. Now the truth of the matter is, international prices are shooting up. The dollar is, the Kenya shilling is now depreciating every day. And then there is that conspiracy between the countries who produce oil to produce less so that they increase. That is one of the theories coming out. So to me, we need to explain, and based on that now, we go back to our budget and say, out of these many things we promised Kenyans will do, and we put them in the budget, are there a few of them we could push to the next budget? So that now you leave some room to get some resources to cushion now Kenyans informed by the current reality. And I think if we go that way, then Kenyans are not stupid. They'll be able to understand how they see the Kenya Kwanza government is sensitive to our issues. But what is currently happening now, we see a lot of insensitivity to the issues affecting Kenyans on day-to-day basis. And this is not good for the country, it's not good for our politics, and it's not even good for the Kenya Kwanza government as a regime. Thank you, Dibao.
Right. We're due for a station break right now. 8 o'clock on the nose right now. When we circle back, we want to ask some of the very critical capital-intensive projects like SGR, the extension of SGR, where the government has given an indication that it's now going to extend the SGR to Kisumu, Malaba, and Isiolo by the end of June 2027. And do we really need also Maisha card right now, which is bound to cost us 1 billion shillings, right? We have SGR, which will cost almost $15 billion to actually make sure we have that particular extension. So when it comes to priority is when we want to question the government and how they're prioritizing in light of also the high cost of living that we're facing as Kenyans. When we circle back, we continue with that, and also, of course also delve deeper on the party politics, where UDA wants to be a super machine, a super party, now swallowing all other constituents parties within it. And right now they're saying that is Kenya Kwanza. Now they're saying we have Ford Kenya, which has declined to fold, amongst other parties, ANC as well. We'll take a short break, don't worry.